Good morning, folks at Sylvie's. This is Tim Welch. I wanted to go over the version of the work sample system that we used last year. We've added some improvements I think will save you quite a bit of time. Let me just run through the system in a video, and you would have this sheet as a backup. So step one is to make a copy of this sheet and make a copy. And here's my copy. And the very first step is going to be to rename this, and I will call this Tim Welch May 2024. That's when I'm doing this. And then it's stored in my drive. We'll just leave it at that. And then we're going to run our work samples. Well, the first step is to run this first script. Of course, this requires the authorization. We will give it permission to do all these things. And the first time you run that script, it's just giving permission. So then you need to run that same script again. And what it's doing is creating a new folder in your drive and moving this file. Go to my drive. Here's my 2024-25 system. And there it is. This file got moved into 2425 by the script. Okay, that's what happened with that piece. Then we want to create student folders from roster. Well, the first thing we need to do is get our student rosters. Let me go ahead and get that set up. So I would continue working now on this. I just populated a couple of student names in there. What's important, let's check this out. If I open up this plus sign, you don't see any data in here. And this is sort of this stuff that is needed, but we keep it hidden just because it's a little bit easier. What I'm going to do is put in my grade levels. Let's say this is a third grader, and let's say this is a fifth grader. When we do that, notice a couple of things get pulled in with some formulas to give me the right form ID and the form response template ID. So now that we have those in there and we've set up our sample folder, let's create the student folders from the roster. And I've got a roster. I haven't added parent names. You would, of course, be doing that. So this script, we'll let this one run. This one takes a couple of minutes. There we go. We have a new student folder, and that is something I can check back here. If I were to there you go. There's Susan Gear and Tommy Smith. Nothing in those folders yet. And let's come back here. Let's run the next one, which is copy the form and documents to the student folders. Now what that's doing is making a copy of the correct form for each grade level, putting it in that student folder, and it's also putting in a blank form response sheet that will be used for that student. So let's go ahead and let this run. This takes a few minutes. Obviously, if you have a lot of students, this will take quite a bit longer, but I would suggest if you have, say, 30 students, maybe do it in batches of 10 so that our scripts don't time out. Well, you can see now those scripts are actually done. And let's take a look then at this third step. Well, email parents, we're not going to do that yet. That would be a script, something I would do a little bit later. The next step is to, let's take a look. So I've copied my document. This runs through all that authorization. We've got the folder. We've got all of these steps. So we had made our way down here already to step 12. We've copied the form and document. Let's see what that means. Well, and then it says for each student, you got to open up each student folder and go ahead and open the purple form to open it. The step 13, what is being referred to there is I could open up the new student folder. Here's Susan Gear's folder, and I can click on that and open it. And let's go back here and do it this way. Let's go to Susan Gear. This step that is being talked about here is to open the form. And the reason you have to do that is inside of Susan Gear, we have two things now. But when I open this form the first time, notice you're going to get this missing folder, file upload folder. So you want to restore those. Notice this year we've also changed the look and feel of the form for each grade level, so you can see that. If I come back here now, you can see the third grade progress form. So I need to come back here, go to my other student, open the form, restore the folders. And now, if I come back to my my instructions, we are at this point ready to go with this section here on the restoring the folders, and we are basically done with setting up the spreadsheet. Well, let's take a look. We have all of this information is now populated. The next script that you would run would be to email the parents, and that would send the form URL off to the parents, but that we're not ready to do that yet. So let's take a look at this new tab that we have right now on the Ed Plan for these students. This is going to bring in information from the Ed Plan, and I need to create an Ed Plan for these students. So that would be my next step. So returning back to the instructions, there is a link on the instruction page to open the form for the Ed Plan. So what I'm going to do, and I'll pause my recording, I'm going to just fill out an Ed Plan for my two students that I have, and then I'll come back and we'll continue. I have gone ahead and created these two education plans for my two students, and I can come back and show you back in here. This is where education plans are stored. Just real quick, here's our 24, 25. And you can see here I have Tommy Smith and Susan Gear. I have these two education plans. So what it says is, by the way, once you have these Ed Plans, do not rename the Ed Plan. That's super important because the script is looking specifically, as I showed here, it's specifically looking for the way you named the student 24-25 education plan. That's the way the script is running. So what we're going to do is now that I've got everything else set up on here, I can come back and I'm going to move myself over to my Ed Plan sheet, and I'm going to run, I'm going to go ahead and run the Ed Plan, get the Ed Plan URLs. And that should look in that folder that I just shared with you. There it is, it's that quick. And now notice right from here, there's my Susan Gear education plan. I could actually open it up from here. There's all the information for the Susan Gear Ed Plan, and same would be for my Tommy Smith. So that was the first step. And then now the next plan is to copy the Ed Plan to the form. So and that would be this step here. So we set up the Ed Plans. We made the Ed Plan, and then we got the Ed Plan URL, and then we are going to run the next script, which is going to populate the form. Well, let's take a look at the form. So right now, you can see that here's this month piece. Here's our math progress, reading progress. So this is the cool part. It's going to happen when I come back to this sheet and I copy the Ed Plan to the form. What it's doing is actually reading that Ed Plan, the document, and pasting the information. You can see already Susan Gear is done. There's all the information on the Ed Plan for her showing up right in here, and the reading, and this was a step that you would have spent quite a bit of time doing last year, and this has just done that quickly for you with the script. Also notice that it added a link to the Ed Plan for this student. So if I clicked here on this link here, I could go right to the ed plan for that particular student right within the form, and the parents would as well. So let's move on in our instructions. We've gone through and got the ed plans in place. Notice that update form status is now completed. Now, if you wanted to update the form again, just remove the word completed, and the script would go through these rows and it would just run and update the forms for any ed plans that have changed for any particular students in that line. So our next step then is to copy the data over to, let's see here, is to copy an ed plan actually over to the this last step here. Copy the ed plan to the response sheet. We're not going to do that yet because we first need to go through and run the ed plan. We need to go through all of these individual folders. Now, there's several ways we can do this. You can come back now here to your roster sheet, and I do have this open, and what I want to do now for each student, here's Susan Gear, I want to open up the Susan Gear form response sheet. Now, it's super important when you open this up, this set of numbers, super important, don't do anything with that. Give this a moment while it is loading the onOpen script, and in a moment we will see a new menu populate right here, set up work samples, and again, this is a situation where again we have to authorize, and you have to do this for each student. I've been trying to find a way to move us away from that, but haven't figured it out. And again, that authorized, so now I have to run it, and what that's going to do is create a new form response sheet. You can see that right here. It's got all the information from the form, and then what we need to do is clean up the sheet because we need to get rid of sheet 1, and it kind of formats this and makes that look a little better. That script is done, and then we want to create the subject sheets, and what that's doing is going through and creating a sheet for each subject and opening up the standards, pulling in the data for each one of these, and there's a couple more tabs that are getting run here. And I'm going to let that finish just in the to save a little time, and I'm going to go ahead and open up Tommy's, and I'm going to do the same thing. Now, just to point out, I have to wait here. Let's go back and see, because now I'm waiting for that script. Notice that everything seems to be done. I got my uploaded file script, I've got my math, and this is where it pulls in all of the standards, and it also is going to pull in the work sample, and it's going to pull in all of the uploaded files that the parents have set up with that. Now that I have come back here to Tommy, I can create the form response sheet. Again, this is going to require authorization. This is a different spreadsheet. Have to authorize it just this first time. Come down here and allow. That just authorized it, remember that, so we have to run this again. Sometimes people miss this step. And now I have my form response sheet, sheet 1. I can go ahead and clean up the sheet, get rid of that sheet 1, get the data formatted, and then create the subject sheets. And once this is done, and I've got all my subject sheets, here's Susan and here's Tommy. So my next step then, these will be done, and the script, Tommy's still running his script. But once that's all done, I'm going to come back to my ed plan sheet, and as soon as I see that Tommy's done, and there it is, he's all done. So now I'm coming back here, and I'm going to run now this final script. I'll show you what happens when you do this. We're going to copy the ed plan to the response sheet now, because the response sheet is now set up. So we'll go ahead and do that. And what's happening is in each, and notice here it tells me it's done, an ed plan added to the sheet. So if I notice that a new sheet's been added to Tommy, and it is Tommy's ed plan in this sheet that collects the form data that the parents submit. And I can look at the ed plan right here. Here's an actual link to the ed plan. his specific ed plan, just trying to make this as easy as possible. Come back here to Susan and notice here's her ed plan and a link here to Susan's ed plan. That should populate and see Susan Gear. I could open that up and see what her ed plan looks like on the document, but I can also see what her ed plan looks like right in here. So as I'm assessing the work samples, I can easily access this without having to poke around and try to find it. So also notice that in addition to the ed plan that we just seen, all of the, back on the data plan, you can see the information about the pacing and the progress above each line for reading, for math, and so forth. You can see the curriculums and all of that information that you can pull in across here to see the data that's at the top of these this data sheet. So I think that is the set of instructions. I'm not going to go through the emailing the parents. That really hasn't changed. Although I would say one thing that has changed on emailing parents is now the parent email not only includes a link to the form, it also includes a link to the ed plan, so that the parents are in the loop here on the form and the ed plan all in one place. I hope this video is helpful, and if there's any questions, I know you can contact myself or Eric or Heidi.